Chapter 9. And the Lord spoke unto Moses in the wilderness of Sinai in the first month of the 2nd year after they were come out of the land of Egypt, saying, Let the children of Israel keep the Passover in the appointed season. In the 14th day of this month, at dusk, you shall keep it in its appointed season. According to all the statutes of it, and according to all the ordinances thereof, shall you keep it. And Moses spoke unto the children of Israel, that they should keep the Passover. And they kept the Passover in the first month on the 14th day of the month, at dusk, in the wilderness of Sinai. According to all that the Lord commanded Moses, so did the children of Israel. But there were certain men who were unclean by the dead body of a man, so that they could not keep the Passover on the day. And they came before Moses and before Aaron on that day. And those men said unto him, We are unclean by the dead body of a man. Wherefore are we kept back, so as not to bring the offering of the Lord in its appointed season among the children of Israel? And Moses said unto them, Stay you, that I may hear what the Lord commanded concerning you. And the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, If any man of you or of your generation shall be unclean by reason of a dead body, or be in a journey afar off, yet he shall keep the Passover unto the Lord. In the 2nd month, on the 14th day, at dusk, shall they keep it. They shall keep it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs, and they shall leave none of it unto the morning, nor break a bone thereof. According to all the statute of the Passover, they shall keep it. But the man that is clean, and is not on a journey, and forbears to keep the Passover, that soul shall be cut off from his people, because he brought not the offering of the Lord in its appointed season. That man shall bear his sin. And if a stranger shall sojourn among you, and will keep the Passover unto the Lord, according to the statute of the Passover, and according to the ordinance thereof, so shall he do. You shall have one statute, both for the stranger and for him that is born in the land. And on the day that the tabernacle was reared up, the cloud covered the tabernacle, even the tent of the testimony, and at even there was upon the tabernacle as it were the appearance of fire until morning. So it was always. The cloud covered it, and the appearance of fire by night. And whenever the cloud was taken up from over the tent, then after that the children of Israel journeyed, and in the place where the cloud abode, there the children of Israel encamped. At the commandment of the Lord the children of Israel journeyed, and at the commandment of the Lord they encamped. As long as the cloud abode upon the tabernacle, they remained encamped. And when the cloud tarried upon the tabernacle many days, then the children of Israel kept the charge of the Lord and journeyed not. And sometimes the cloud was a few days upon the tabernacle. According to the commandment of the Lord, they remained encamped, and according to the commandment of the Lord they journeyed. And sometimes the cloud was from evening until morning, and when the cloud was taken up in the morning, they journeyed. Or if it continued by day and by night, when the cloud was taken up, they journeyed. Whether it were 2 days, or a month, or a year, that the cloud tarried upon the tabernacle, abiding thereon, the children of Israel remained encamped, and journeyed not. When it was taken up, they journeyed. At the commandment of the Lord they encamped, and at the commandment of the Lord they journeyed. They kept the charge of the Lord, at the commandment of the Lord, by the hand of Moses. Let's go back up to the verse 1, and we will recall in the last chapter as we continue with the Lord giving these ordinances, statutes, these guidelines, you might say, to Aaron. In the last chapter, he told him how to light the lamps and which way to face the lamps, or to direct the lighting of the lamp. As we see, the Levites were going to be used for a very similar purpose, to direct the light. Of course, that light is the knowledge of Hashem, that the law, the ordinances or the statutes, these commandments he give everybody. The ordinances were placed in your heart as a witness. But the atonement was made, and the sons of Levi were sanctified and given to Aaron as to do the work of the sanctuary, and to make atonement and to aid in the ministries, you might say, of their brethren. But we're going to pick it up here in verse 1. And the Lord spoke unto Moses in the wilderness of Sinai in the first month of the second year after they were come out of the land of Egypt, saying. So Moses, now Hashem, is speaking unto Moses. Moses is the one that's drawn out. He's the one that's been rescued by Hashem, Hashem being the powers, the strength of all creation. This is going to take place in the wilderness of Sinai, the mountain of thorns, or this mountain of the nations, or the high place of the nations. Of course, it stands for idolatry, these things that show up later and prick or puncture or pierce us in a way to cause us to be defiled. It's going to be during the first month of the second year. Of course, this is after they came out of the land of Egypt. That's that place of graves, that place of snares, traps, whatever you want to call it. It's the place of death. It's going to be in the first month. The first month's the beginning of them lesser lights, or the beginning of the light of man. The second year, of course, it's going to be, we get to witness the greater understandings, because they always come from Hashem. 2, let the children of Israel keep the Passover in the appointed season, and that's going to be pretty well the subject here, is this Passover, or to keep that festival of the Lord from the beginning, where He sanctified them when they came forth out of Egypt. So let them keep this. Let them. It was a perpetual ordinance to be kept forever. 3, in the 14th day of the month, at dusk, you shall keep it in its appointed season, according to all the statutes of it, and according to the ordinances thereof shall you keep it. So the Passover had come up, and this was the ordinance, that they shall keep the Passover. It was going to be in the 14th day. Of course, 14th is a portion of the days of a month, and the 14th day is going to be that portion, which is the law in the work of Hashem, who's separating in that lesser light. As we'll find out, the law is the light, and they keep it at dusk. Of course, that's going to be at evening when the Passover begins, and in its appointed season, of course, that's going to be the 14th day of the month, according to its statutes, according to the way it's supposed to be done. The ordinances, exactly the directions. Just like if you would put something together, you would have to have a set of directions. Well, if you're going to follow this, you're going to have a set of directions. The directions and the statutes are plainly given. 4, and Moses spoke unto the children of Israel that they should keep the Passover. So Moses tells the children of Israel, that's all those that come forth from Israel, the one that contends with the mighty one, and men as well, that they should keep the Passover, and it was appointed, and preparation had begun. 5, and they kept the Passover in the first month, on the 14th day of the month at dusk, in the wilderness of Sinai, according to all the Lord commanded Moses. So did the children of Israel. And they kept the Passover just in the first month, that was the beginning of that lesser light, when the Lord brought you forth out of that land of graves. Of course, that representing all the idolatry that was present in Egypt at that time, being dead by idolatry. The Lord give you life. Of course, this first month, the first month is a representation of that. Is the beginning of the light, because the Lord commanded there shouldn't be all utter darkness. And basically, we have the moon to represent this lesser light. It gets its light though from the sun. And these are only used in a figurative sense. On the 14th day of the month, of course, that's always that portion of the law that separates, the work of God that separates that understanding of the lesser light. Of course, that is those that keep the law. And it's in the wilderness of Sinai. That's the place where the words drive out in the nations, in all the nations. It's according to all the Lord commanded Moses, so did the children of Israel, and they kept it. 6, but there were certain men who were unclean by a dead body of a man, so that they could not keep the Passover on the day, and they came before Moses and before Aaron on that day. So these certain men, it doesn't really matter who they were, they're going to be used as an example, because chance fell upon them that they was made unclean by a duty they had to perform. That was to remove a dead body or somebody who was dead. So they couldn't keep the Passover. They was unclean, and they was unable to keep that Passover. So they came before Moses, concerned about what they should do. 7. And those men said unto him, We are unclean by a dead body of a man. Wherefore are we to be kept back, so as not to bring the offering of the Lord? It is in its appointed season among the children of Israel. So they came to Moses to tell him, because according to the ordinances and the statutes and the laws, they were unclean, and they was going to be unable to keep the Passover, and they were to be left back or to be put out away from everybody. So they came to Moses concerned about this. 8. And Moses said unto them, Stay you, that I may hear what the Lord will command concerning you. So Moses says to them, Stay, wait, and I will listen. Hashem will tell us what would be to happen. 9. And the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, changing paragraphs, the Lord speaks unto Moses, once again, Hashem. This is the powers of creation, and these men hasn't done nothing wrong. They performed a duty that was necessary, and by chance it fell unclean on that day. What happens? We'll find out. The Lord gives them another day. 10. Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, If any man of you or of your generation shall be unclean by reason of a dead body, or be in a journey afar off, yet he shall keep the Passover unto the Lord. And this was what the Lord said. These words would be for all those that come forth from Israel, those that face life's adversity. If a man of you, anybody in your generation, this would be forever, shall be unclean, by chance, for whatever reason, by a dead body, or be in a journey afar off, yet he shall keep the Passover unto the Lord. So this was going to be the ordinance and statutes of the second Passover. It's going to be on the second month, as we find out. This was done by Solomon. 11. In the second month, on the 14th day, at dusk, they shall keep it. They shall eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. And in the second month, of course, that's that portion of that understanding, the lesser light, that we get to witness. It's the 14th day, just like in the first month. It's the 14th day. It's always going to be the law. It's the work of God separating in the understandings. At dusk, just as evening, before the darkness falls, they shall keep it. They shall eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. And this unleavened bread, of course, we know that's the bread that don't got no poof in it. It's just the bread. There wasn't time to get all that. They come forth with just the basics, you might say, and these bitter herbs. The bitter herbs is to, there's always a little bit of bitterness in every departure. 12. They shall leave none of it unto the morning, nor break a bone thereof, according to all the statutes of Passover. They shall keep it. They shall leave none of it until the morning, nor break a bone. So, and that was the ordinance. That was the statute, that none of this offering, this lamb, which was offered, of course, that's what the Egyptians worshipped, was that lamb, and that was an abomination. Of course, it became the sacrifice that represented the freedom, the destruction of, and the total devouring of that abomination. And the commandment was not to break a bone. Of course, that's to leave the essence, leave that essence intact. 13. But the man that is clean and is not on a journey and forbeareth to keep the Passover, that soul shall be cut off from his people, because he brought not the offering of the Lord in its appointed season. That man shall bear his sin. But the man that was clean, he's not on a journey. He just didn't want to come, thought he'd wait till the next Passover to keep it. That soul shall be cut off from his people. It don't work like that. This was a conditions law, a condition statute, where under certain conditions, those that for whatever reason couldn't be there by fate, they could be able to keep the ordinances and statutes of the law, because Hashem didn't want nobody left out. But now the person that's clean, that could have been there, they really don't have an excuse. And the Lord knows the difference. 14. And if a stranger shall sojourn among you, and will keep the Passover unto the Lord, according to the statute of the Passover, and according to the ordinance thereof, so shall he do. You shall have one statute, both for the stranger and for him that is born in the land. Now let's say a stranger, just somebody who's not a Hebrew. Doesn't necessarily have to be a Hebrew to know who Hashem is. Hashem spoke to everybody. Now those that are just somebody that comes to sojourn among you, live there, work there, and becomes to practice these customs, keeps the Passover unto the Lord. And it says he should have the law and ordinances and statutes of Hashem, so he can prosper and do well in a society, according to the statutes of the Passover and according to the ordinances thereof. He wants to do everything just like it's supposed to be done. So shall he do. He can keep the Passover on the next month. You shall have one statute. There's one law. There's one ordinance. There's one set of directions to doing it. It's both for the stranger and for him that is born in the land. It doesn't matter who you are. There's one set of instructions. This is how it's done. 15. Changing subjects. On the day that the tabernacle was reared up, and the cloud covered the tabernacle, even the tent of the testimony, and at even there was upon the tabernacle, as it were, the appearance of fire until morning. We're going to start talking about this. The day of the tabernacle was reared up, and the cloud covered that tabernacle. Of course, the cloud is a little bit of confusion. It's there. It's to obscure. We'll find out, not only for protection, but to represent the fact that you didn't see no face. You only heard a voice come out of in the beginning, and there was a little bit of confusion, of course, in the law, that these things that come forth, and we all hear them. But this cloud, this little bit of confusion, covered the tent of the testimony. Of course, that testimony is really the witness. What it is the copy of the contract. It's in the box. And at evening there was upon the tabernacle, as it were, the appearance of fire until morning. So at the evening, at night, this appearance of fire, or this judgment, was kind of there. And of course, in the day there's a light that comes off, and there's a little bit of confusion we see in the world. Even though even though knowledge is present, doesn't seem like anybody getting a hold of it. And this fire we see in the darkness, of course, that's that period of time when the understanding gone, and there's darkness. We see this fire, we see this judgment, and it's going to be there until the morning, or until the light comes forth. 16. So it was always. The cloud covered it, and the appearance of fire by night. And this is the way it was. The cloud covered it during the day, and the appearance of this fire by night is 17. And whenever the cloud was taken up from over the tent, then after that the children of Israel journeyed, and in the place where the cloud abode, there the children of Israel encamped. And whenever this cloud was taken up from the tent, of course that tent's that place where we have the agreement. It's for protection. And a little bit of confusion. Of course, everybody's under a little bit of confusion. No one has full understanding of everything, my friend. You can trust me in that. But this cloud, it's a little bit of confusion. And when it goes away, these children of Israel, they journey. And when the cloud abides, wherever the cloud abides, there the children of Israel encamp. At the commandment of the Lord, the children of Israel journeyed, and at the commandment of the Lord, they encamped. As long as the cloud abode upon the tabernacle, they remained encamped. So it was at the commandment of the Lord, because he was the cloud. He was that confusion. He was a little bit of confusion, of course, to the other nations. He's a whole lot of confusion. But these children of Israel would journey whenever the Lord would lift up. Of course, they're confident. And at the commandment of the Lord, they encamped. Wherever the Lord said they encamped, they would abide there, wherever that confusion was. And the cloud would abide upon the tabernacle That's when they would remain encamped. And when the cloud tarried upon the tabernacle many days, then the children of Israel kept the charge of the Lord and journeyed not. So as long as the cloud was there, they didn't go nowhere. If it stayed there many days, they stayed there many days. They kept the charge of the Lord. They was doing what the Lord asked, 20. Sometimes the cloud was a few days upon the tabernacle. According to the commandment of the Lord, they remained encamped. According to the commandment of the Lord, they journeyed. And as long as this cloud was there, a few days, of course, the number of understandings that are upon the tabernacle are massive. That tabernacle was that place where we all can share an agreement. It's according to the commandment of the Lord. There they would remain encamped. Or it's according to the commandment of the Lord they journeyed. Whenever they had the confidence and the clarity, they would go forth according to the Lord, according to his commandments. 21. And sometimes the cloud was from evening until morning. And when the cloud was taken up in the morning, they journeyed. Or if it continued by day and by night, then the cloud was taken up, they journeyed. So sometimes the cloud was from evening until morning. Of course, that presence of fire was there in the evening. And this cloud, of course, that it's always around the fire. When the cloud was taken up in the morning, that's that confusion come forth. When the light come forth in the morning, they would journey. Or if it continued by day or by night, when the cloud was taken up, they journeyed. It didn't matter. When the cloud was over the tent, they stayed in place. And when it was moved, they went forward, or they went on, they journeyed. 22, whether it were 2 days or a month or a year that the cloud tarried upon the tabernacle, abiding thereon, the children of Israel remained encamped and journeyed not. When it was taken up, they journeyed. It didn't matter whether it was 2 days or a month or a year, however long it was. We can witness those understandings, my friend. That lesser light or that greater understanding that the cloud tarried upon the tabernacle. Of course, that's the place where we got that agreement, in abiding thereon. The children of Israel would remain encamped, and they didn't journey, they didn't go nowhere. But when it was taken up, they journeyed. Of course, that's the clarity Hashem gives in his understandings. When we understand these things, then we can journey forth. 23. At the commandment of the Lord, they encamped. At the commandment of the Lord, they journeyed. They kept the charge of the Lord. At the commandment of the Lord, by the hand of Moses. At the commandment of the Lord, by the instructions of Hashem, they encamped according to what he said. At the commandment of the Lord, they journeyed. They went forth according to what he said. They kept the charge of the Lord. They done what he asked. They done what Hashem asked, just exactly like he asked them to do it. And at the commandment of the Lord, by the hand of Moses. And it was by the hand of Moses, that one that was drawn out. It was by his works. They were able to move forward. They were able to follow Hashem according to the way he wanted them to go. And we're going to move forward to Numbers chapter 10. Turn and return.